Welcome, Delver. The vaults are not kind to the unprepared, but I see a spark of curiosity in your eyes, perhaps a touch of destiny. I am Piriendiel Stormomen, but you may call me Piri. I was once a magus of the Drowning Dawn, a blend of wizard and warrior, trained to protect my people with both spell and blade. In my time, I've walked many paths. Once I was a spy and saboteur in the city of Pedestal, loyal to the Lady of the Isle, but fate has a way of turning even the most steadfast beliefs upside down. It was my encounter with a group of adventurers from the surface that opened my eyes to the truth. I saw that my people were blindly following the Lady to their doom, allying with forces bent on our corruption. So I turned my back on my orders and joined those adventurers. Together we stole a ship and now sail the Dark Lake, striking against those who would see us fall. But let me start from the beginning. Let me tell you the story of my people, the Mor'shael. Dark spirits, as we are now called. We were once proud tidal elves, embarked on a quest to find the mythical land of Ealindarion, hoping to save our withering homeland with the Fey water. Hundreds of us set sail on finely crafted ships, crossing the Sea of Sorrows. Only, it wasn't Ealindarion we found. It was despair. We split our fleet into 3 squadrons, each following different Starseer's readings. The Noctura, led by my captain Rian Karagan, took the southernmost route. For weeks, the sea was calm, serene even. Then came the storm, a sudden ferocious maelstrom that shattered our fleet and sucked us into the bowels of the earth, these vaults. When we washed ashore in the Great Grotto, we were lost, trapped between the frigid depths of the Dark Lake and the impenetrable walls of Pedestal. The city's inhabitants, Kalini, Droog, Nishiho and Ored, welcomed us at first, gave us refuge, showed us what was safe to eat, taught us about this alien world. But there was always a catch, always some politicking. Captain Karagan, he was a good man, but he saw through their games. He wanted out, wanted to find a way back to the surface. But our ships were in ruins, and the only material that could fix them was the rare Zerk fungus. Not that it would do any good. We were miles below the surface. How does one sail upward through solid rock? Yet Captain Karagan pressed on nonetheless. To give us hope, I suppose, we learned of the Zigmanthar, a sentient island-sized fungus where Zerk grew in abundance. But it was guarded by hostile myceloids, the sovereign collective. We were stuck, and the tarnishing began. Our silvery skin darkened, our hair bleached, our children were born with mutations. Spite-spawn, they were called. Hope was fading, and so we turned to more desperate measures. Captain Karagan made a deal with the Seekers of the Darkwell, a cult rising in power. It was supposed to be a way out, a way to use an earth node to leave the accursed Great Grotto, but it turned into a bloody coup. The Seekers took over Pedestal and we helped them, unknowingly trading one tyranny for another. When they turned on us, we had no choice but to flee. Captain Karagan sacrificed himself to buy us time, and under Captain Ealindariel's leadership, we made it to Zigmanthar. We allied with the myceloids, built a new home on Ealindarion Isle, yet the tarnishing spread and our desperation grew. Marathria, now the Lady of the Isle, turned to the Div, Earth-Fae spirits, who promised salvation through devotion to a potent primordial entity, Pienka, the wandering spider. But it came with a cost, flesh warping. However, this cure only twisted our people more, poisoning mind, body and spirit. The Lady outlawed Tempesti's worship, commanding all to place their faith in Pienka. The Div promised her aid was forthcoming, but all we reaped were abominations and a society on the brink of collapse. Now, I sail the Dark Lake with a new captain, a Sky Velic named Atticus, avoiding the tigerfish savages and raiding settlements loyal to the Seekers of the Darkwell. We fight for a future, for redemption. But it's a grim course. We might not see the end of it, but we fight on. So, that's the story of my people, a tale of tragedy, betrayal, and a flicker of hope in the darkness. If you're still with me, there's more to tell, more to learn. Maybe, together, we can find a way to turn the tide. Living in the vaults has shaped us in ways the surface folk can barely comprehend. We Mor'shael have become skilled navigators of these treacherous tunnels and waterways. It's in our blood, passed down from our ancestors who were master sailors. These twisting passages are as familiar to us as the open sea once was. Our connection to the Fae and the dark powers of the vaults grants us unique abilities. These eldritch and primal magics are both revered and feared. Outsiders often seek our aid, believing we hold the keys to survival or power in this harsh world, and if we were still welcomed by the people of Pedestal, as we were when we first arrived, then perhaps we would intervene to curb their suffering at the hands of the Seekers. But the Lady of the Isle has deemed it wise to preserve our magic for our own protection. I suppose she is right, yet the suffering is not so small a matter you can ignore when the night grows deep. I have spent time in that hellhole Pedestal after it fell to the cultists. The cries of the enslaved and wails of the tortured haunt my dreams to this day. I do not envy the lady her decision. Leadership among us is a heavy burden. Our people are few, and our trials are great. We must always be wary of outsiders. Survival has often meant doing deeds and performing tasks we once found deplorable. The vaults are full of dangers, and we've learned that sometimes, to protect our own, we must make hard choices. To outsiders, I suppose we seem manipulative and secretive, masters of deception and intrigue. They think we're all spies, or worse, terrorists. Our use of alchemy and primal magic, especially flesh warping, makes them wary. And helping the Musceloids detonate the spore plague bomb underneath Pedestal didn't help any. Even those living outside the city view us as arrogant and pitiable. They believe we consider ourselves superior to the stone folk of the vaults. And perhaps we do. Yet they also pity us, seeing us as a lost and desperate people, struggling against insurmountable odds, also true. A shame, really. We could truly help one another if more were willing to put aside mutual prejudices for even just a day. We, Mor'shael, are a striking and varied people. Our appearances reflect our complex history and the different stages of our transformation. The pure among us retain much of our original tidal elf appearance. With silvery skin that glistens like moonlight on water, dark hair that cascades like the waves, and eyes of deep violet or blue, reminiscent of twilight. These individuals are seen as symbols of hope and purity among us. Then there are those of us who are tarnished, like myself. Our skin has darkened to a fathomless ebony hue, though it glistens like polished obsidian. But our hair, once lustrous black like the star-filled sky, has drained of all colour, bleached white like bones in the sand. Our eyes, still piercingly violet, now reflect the eerie luminescence of the vaults. We carry the burden of our tragic history and ongoing struggle against the tarnishing. Some of us are in a transitional state, caught between our original appearance and the effects of the tarnishing. Their skin shows patches of the encroaching darkness, their hair streaked with both ebony and shocked ivory. Their eyes shift in colour, reflecting an internal battle against the corruption. These individuals embody the hope and fear of our people. Finally, there are those who are not spoken of, at least where the matriarchs can hear. Suffering side effects of flesh-warping treatments, they may appear outwardly normal, but they harbour hidden abnormalities. Their skin and hair might remain true to our original appearance, but subtle signs, unusual strength, minor deformities, strange patterns on their skin, hint at their altered nature. They are closely monitored by the Chirurgians for further changes. At any rate, we are typically lithe and agile, standing head and shoulders above those ugly little droog, with a slender build reflecting our elven heritage. Our men and women share similar traits, though the females hold more power in our matriarchal society. We age like most elves, with lifespans reaching centuries, but the tarnishing has made us appear older than we are, and the hazards of this place have cut our life expectancy dramatically. On Rian Carrion Isle, our traditions and way of life are guarded with fierce vigilance. Our city, no, our sanctuary is Nyth Glorin. Sealed behind mighty Fey wards, it is an architectural wonder built atop and within the mighty Zerk fungi that rise from the back of the sentient Zigmanthar. A living place, none but Mor'shael and mycoloids dare enter without invitation of the Lady of the Isle. We live in harmony with the Sovereign Collective, our myceloid allies, who helped us carve out an intricate network of tunnels and chambers below the Isle to serve as a foundation for a city dedicated to peace and harmony. Nyth Glorin is not just a marvel of cooperation and resilience between two peoples, but is a home. Our society is guided by a powerful council of women, known as the Eight, with the Lady of the Isle at their head. These leaders have taken the names of the ships that survived traversing the turbulent water node as the names of their newly established noble houses. Under their guidance, we have not only survived, but thrived, developing a vibrant culture and a strong sense of community. Among the Eight, several have taken the silk veil of the web-wrapped, dedicating themselves to Piriendiel, the wandering spider. These matriarchs are both our political and spiritual leaders, respected for their wisdom and power. Sadly, most of our men have perished in battle or been deemed unfit due to their susceptibility to the Tarnishing. The Eight enforce strict breeding rules, allowing only those who retain the purest tidal elf appearance to bear children. These chosen men, endowed with the star seed, are respected and privileged, but confined to the palace. They, along with their mates and offspring, are seen as our future's hope, provided they remain untainted. Strong families are greatly prized, and thus courtship is overseen by the Eight. The matriarchs have instituted selective breeding, reserving it for the purest among us. This ensures our children will be born strong and then raised with a sense of duty and loyalty. Pure children are our only hope. They preserve our heritage. At least that's what the matriarchs tell us. But at what cost, I wonder? Beyond the family, work is a constant in the city and on the island, driven by the need to maintain our precarious existence. Many of us are skilled miners, extracting rare ores and gems. Others farm and cultivate various fungal species that thrive on the island. Our artisans create exquisite jewellery and decorations, traded with the few outsiders brave enough to cross the dark lake. Our chirurgeons, or physicians, are our most prestigious professionals. They have become experts in flesh warping, the alchemical art taught us by the Div, and since honed beyond its original purpose of treating the Tarnishing, it has helped many adapt to the fungal forests and spore-choked caves. Despite the benefits, I never dared a treatment. Too many rumours of accidents and worse. Daily life took some time getting used to. We make flowing clothes woven from the silks of large arachnids nesting in the tops of the zerk. Metal ores are rare on the island, so most of our tools and weapons are forged from umbranite mined from underneath the belly of the Zigmanthar. Our diet consists primarily of fungi and subterranean flora, along with albino fish from the Dark Lake. We've developed sophisticated farming techniques to grow a variety of edible and medicinal fungi, central to our sustenance. And our homes, built among the zurk and fluted stone columns, blend seamlessly with the natural environment. Despite the hardships, we find solace in music and dance. Festivals are a source of joy and a reminder of our enduring hope and unity. In the Grand Hall, we gather to celebrate important holidays and achievements. These gatherings preserve our culture and strengthen our resolve. Strategic games like chess and dice are popular, serving as entertainment and a way to hone our thinking. Throughout it all, Captain Ryan Karagan's legacy is a cornerstone of our identity. His statue stands in the central plaza, a reminder of his bravery and ultimate sacrifice. On Karagan's Day, we honour his memory with songs, dances and tales of his heroism, fostering unity and courage. It is my favourite day of the year. Belief in escape from these depths, a return to our beloved seas, is our lifeline in the vaults. It's what keeps us going in the darkest times. But belief can also blind us, leading us down dangerous paths. I've seen this firsthand, and it tears at my heart every day. We used to worship Tempesti, the goddess of nature, but we were abandoned by her, left to our dark fate here in the vaults. Praying to her is strictly outlawed, deemed treasonous by the Eight. So, we turn to Piriendiel, the wandering spider, hoping for redemption. Piriendiel's promise of freedom from the Tarnishing gives us hope, something to cling to. Our rituals and ceremonies are filled with a fervent belief in this eventual redemption and the restoration of our former glory, but sometimes I wonder if we're just clinging to false hope. The Div, earth-phase spirits who dwell in the shimmering depths beneath Ealindarion Isle, are revered now. They are our allies, providing guidance and strength to survive the changes we are undergoing. But the cost of their aid has been high. Flesh warping, a practice we once viewed with horror, has become our means of survival. The Div promised us salvation through it, but I can't shake the feeling that we've lost something vital, something pure. Central to our faith is Pienka, a primordial entity who once freely explored the depths of this subterranean world. We believe her magic can reverse the Tarnishing, and we make offerings to honour her and seek her favour. Pienka is trapped in an ever-shifting maze known as the Netherweft, and we are determined to free her, believing it will bring salvation to our people. The web-wrapped, our priesthood, are the chosen of Pienka, marked by their silk veils. They hold immense power and influence, guiding us with the wisdom of the wandering spider. But sometimes I fear their devotion may be leading us to ruin. Our rituals reflect our complex belief system. We make sacrifices and offerings to the Div and Pienka, believing these acts secure their protection and guidance. Flesh-warping ceremonies, conducted with reverence, are seen as a means to purify our bodies and souls from the vault's corruption. I see the hope in my people's eyes, but I also see the cost. Despite everything we celebrate, our festivals are filled with music, dance and games, providing a sense of community and hope amidst our struggles. It's in these moments that I see the true spirit of my people, their resilience, their joy, their unity. We have significant holidays that mark our journey and honour our beliefs. The Festival of the Deep celebrates our survival in the depths, with rituals honouring the Div and Pienka. The Remembrance of the Maelstrom commemorates our fateful journey and honours those lost to the Maelstrom, reminding us of our resilience. The Night of Transformation is a ceremony where those who volunteer to test the latest flesh-warping cure are honoured. To be honest, it used to be a solemn rite, but now I think it's just the sanctioned sacrifice of misguided fools. Listen to me, blabbing ship secrets like a drunken cabin boy. Where was I? Ah yes, Karagan's Day. Even though he's been lost to us for decades now, Captain Karagan is revered almost as a saint. His bravery and sacrifice are seen as divinely inspired, a testament to the strength and courage we must embody to survive. On his holiday, we gather and recount tales of his heroism. His legacy is held up as a beacon of hope, but if you ask me, it's a reminder of the price for our survival. These beliefs, our values, they guide our actions, but they also bind us in ways that can be dangerous. Even though I have my doubts about their decisions, I still hold that we must preserve our community and honour the Eight. They are the ones with the knowledge and power to protect our people. I pray the gods or the primordials or whoever may be listening grants them the wisdom to make the right decisions. Just questioning their authority would sentence me to public lashing. Doubting them is a sign of betrayal. But I have seen too much of the truth now to go back to the person I once was. Giving up on the truth is cowardice, and I will not bear that dishonour. No, facing this world's challenges with bravery and determination is the only way to truly survive. Although painful, I must embrace the change. Adapt or die. I just hope the cost is not the soul of my people. My time for telling tales is ended, stranger. Let us return to the proverbial port and address the reason for your visit to this fine establishment. You wonder if you're one of us. If you have what it takes to delve as a Mor'shael, let me deliver a warning before you make your decision. Delving isn't just a choice for us, it's a necessity, a lifeline, a desperate grasp at hope. Each of us carries our own reasons for stepping into the darkness, driven by the harsh realities of our existence and the dreams of what might be. One of the strongest motivations is the search for a cure for the Tarnishing. I've seen too many of my people suffer, their bodies and spirits twisted by this blight. Many of us set out, hearts filled with hope and determination, to find a way to reverse the effects. We explore ancient ruins, hunt for powerful artifacts, and engage in dangerous quests, all in the hope of saving our people. For others, the drive is to escape our isolation. Ealindarion Isle, for all its wonders, can feel like a prison. We venture beyond its shores seeking allies, resources, and perhaps even a means to escape the vaults altogether. I was one of those who believed we could find help across the dark lake, that there were others out there who might join our cause. I've had some luck thus far and made my fair share of friends and alliances. If you ask me, those are the two most valuable resources in these dark depths. Hope and camaraderie have saved my life more often than spell and blade. Nonetheless, some of my people are driven by a duty to protect and promote our society. Quests are a way to bring honour to our families and glory to the noble houses. Adventuring is our contribution to the survival of Nyth Glorin, whether we served as spies among the drowning dawn, soldiers defending the island against Blackhammer dreadnoughts, diplomats to the tiger fish, or apprentices to the flesh warpers. Our skills have honed us for what the harsh realities of this place demands. There are also those who are driven by a thirst for knowledge, a desire to understand this world, its magic, and the forces that corrupt us. The unknown calls, and we answer, believing that each step into the darkness brings us closer to enlightenment. Some of those are like me. We initially believed in the Lady of the Isle's vision, but came to see the hypocrisy and danger in blindly following the Div and Pienka. We resist, and in our resistance we seek the truth, but most of us adventure because we can't sit idly by while the tarnishing spreads, claiming more of our people. Facing the perils of the vaults is preferable to waiting for the inevitable. Besides, the constant danger sharpens our skills and keeps us vigilant. Truth be told, I find it quite invigorating. Well, that's it then, isn't it? Are we brash? Yes, arrogant, and of course. We Mor'shael can be challenging allies indeed. Our reputation as spies, our use of eldritch magic, and our tendency to view non-Mor'shael as lesser beings create barriers. But rest assured, stranger, once trust is forged, there's no more invaluable ally than a Mor'shael who has chosen to stand by your side, which leads us to the end of our journey, the time for you to make your decision. Do you have what it takes to be a Mor'shael, or have I wasted my time?
Hell no, you haven't wasted your time. Welcome back to the Vaults Remastered. Today's episode needs no introduction. We're talking about the Mor'shael, a homebrew ancestry I put together for my Pathfinder 2nd Edition remastered game, the Vaults of the Underearth. I'm going to get into the rest of this video talking about the various mechanics and the heritages and feats that go with this homebrewed ancestry that Piri just told you all about. So let's just jump into this thing. I needed a drow. I needed a dark elf. I needed some sort of subterranean dark fae ancestry. And Paizo doesn't have one. And they're not going to have one. They are not doing drow with the remaster. So I need one. I had to come up with one. And that's what this is about. So here are the mechanics for this ancestry I came up with. Hit points, 8 of them. Their size is medium. Speed, they're a bit nimble, as Piri was talking about, so I have them as a base movement of 30 feet. Attribute boosts are dexterity, wisdom, and a free choice. Your flaw is strength, so you would add +1 to your dex, +1 to wisdom, and the other one is your choice. It just can't be dex or wisdom. And by the way, there's no more ability scores. These are just straight up +1 boosts to those stats. Strength is your penalty, so you're going to lose or have a -1 on that one, but you could cancel that with your freebie here if you want to, or a freebie later during your character creation process. We've got languages, Elvish, of course, the Undercommon language, and then any other languages that are equivalent to your intelligence modifier that are appropriate for the game world. And in my case, we're talking subterranean, darkland style of game world. Traits. We've got elf, we've got humanoid, and I have fae in here because they have a very strong fae ancestral influence on their species here. Special abilities, dark vision. They can see in darkness. That, of course, comes with the penalty of light blindness, is what I refer to it in my game. So most of the ancestries in the Under Earth campaign that I'm running, they have some sort of, at bare minimum, low light vision, but many of them do have dark vision as well. Some couple might even have tremor sense. So this really isn't anything special per se. But there is a penalty for it. That's light blindness. So you can become dazzled or blinded. You have to make a flat check anytime you enter bright light to shield your eyes from the painful burn. Fey focus is and a lot of these, by the way, I derive from the elf ancestry. So I've just taken that and adapted it for these Mor'shael. So you're able to focus your senses That's product of your first world upbringing, your Fey ancestry, Fey blood. You've got this near mystical awareness of your surroundings through meditation processes. And so this gives them a +1 circumstance bonus on perception checks. And if they make search attempts and it's successful, a success is treated as a critical success instead. Search would be an exploration activity. And then lament, since you're maroonings, this is kind of their meditative process that elves have where they don't really sleep. They more meditate. Well, it's called lament for these folks. Since the marooning, they've seen countless people of their friends die, drown, starve, etc. Way before their time. Normally, the elf type of people would live for centuries. These people are dying decades. So they're way before their time. This leads to that sort of despair that these Mor'shael are feeling. And so based upon this, or maybe just their stubbornness that they refuse to give up +1 circumstance bonus to saving throws against emotion effects. And they cannot roll a critical fail against an emotion effect, and they get a regular failure instead. So really, they got the vision, they've got the circumstance bonus for perception and seek or searching, and then they've got the bonus for emotion effects and can't critically fail an emotional effect saving throw. So that is the core mechanics of this homebrew ancestry I put together. Then I get into heritages. For each of my ancestries, I create 6 different heritages that reflect this specific game world, this specific campaign world that I put together. And as I've mentioned, I had this Dark Lands analog known as the Vaults of Underearth. So simply having a cavern elf wasn't going to cut it here. I needed a specific set of ancestries. I have the Mor'shael and several others, and then within those ancestries, I need a whole bunch of heritages that you can branch out within this environment. So most of the heritages you're going to see here are not necessarily tied into geographic sort of stuff. It's more their source of their mutation, the source of their corruption. I went with that angle on this particular ancestry. Other ancestries, I may go more that geographic influence, that more ecological influence. Others, I might go more cultural influences, perhaps religious influences. But for the Mor'shael, for these tidal elves who have become corrupted, I went for their specific type of corruption. So when you're at first level, you choose one of these heritages. So which ones do you have? Well, number 1 is the drowned one, Mor'shael, and these guys get their heritage from the fact that they died. They died by drowning. So the statement is this, or the flavor is this: you should be dead. You were beneath the icy waters long after your lungs gave up their desperate struggle for breath, but somehow you survived. Perhaps you were thrown overboard when your ship was devoured by the maelstrom, or maybe you were a victim of a tigerfish raid and somehow managed to escape, or possibly your parents grew remorseful as they desperately submerged your birth defect before the matriarchs discovered the lie. Uh, Side note here, this whole breeding program that the matriarchs oversee, uh, it's serious business. So if you give birth to one of these spite spawn that was referenced, that is death sentence for that child as well as possibly for you, the parents who gave birth to it, because now people are asking what's wrong with you. What did you do? So a lot of the parents will try to hide these infants. They'll try to give them away if if they have to. Kind of think the idea of like abandoning the child on the raft like Moses and kicking it out on the dark lake. These elves, these Mor'shael, are known as the drowners or the drow because of this reputation for drowning their own. But anyway, the drowned one derived from some sort of tragic event here that happened with the Dark Lake. So what you do know of your background is that you haven't been quite right since this drowning. Something in those dead black waters seeped into you. No, transformed you. No, is transforming you. The lake calls to you now, beckons you with a siren song. She calls to you and you cannot resist her for much longer. Who is she? Her? What's this voice? That's a mystery that I'm planting here for a player who wants to pick one of these Mor'shael and specifically wants to choose a drowned one. You'll notice a lot of the stuff that I'm going through here, lore wise, is very extensive, very expansive. But it has a lot of background information that a player character can dig into because that's one of the big things I'm trying to do with any of these homebrew ancestries. If I'm going to go through the bother of creating one of these things for my game world, I want there to be story built into it. So there is a mystery here that I'm not going to spoil in this video or the character when they or the player when they create this character. It's something that is in there that they can play with. They can, go with this concept of they don't really know what happened to them or why they're so tied to the water. But anyway, what's the benefit? What is the power you get? Well, you have a swim speed, 20-foot swim speed, and you have resistance to cold damage equal to half your level. So you are used to the cold water, the icy chilliness. Now the rest of this is optional or flavor. I started toying around with the idea of there being a burden, a cost to your heritage, a cost to these abilities you might get. So this is not anything that's in standard, Pathfinder stuff. This is just something that I'm considering weaving into my game just because so much of the game, so much of the flavor is tied into the characters, obviously, and their heritages and their ancestries and their feats and their powers and stuff. I thought it'd be interesting to perhaps toy with this idea of maybe there's some sort of burden here. So, this transformation you're undergoing, there's a price to it, and you find it difficult to adjust to dry environments. -1 penalty on fortitude saves. If you're in extremely dry, hot conditions, you need to make some sort of environmental based saving throw. Not necessary. I don't know if I'm gonna do that, but it's something that I can fiddle with if I want to go into like a very hardcore ancestry version of the game at some point. Similar idea here with the tradition. I introduced this originally with the Ignaruk that I talked about a couple weeks ago with those set of videos, almost about a month ago now. My volcanic magmatic orcs and came up with this idea of traditions. So each of the heritages has some sort of tradition that they, manifest or that they practice that gives them a little bit more flavor. So there's not just sort of the description of them, and there's this one power, this benefit, but you also have something that they might do culturally or religiously, that sort of thing. So Call to the Abyss is their tradition. And this ceremony is held under the light of bioluminescent algae on the shores of the Dark Lake. During the ritual, drowned ones submerge themselves in the icy waters to commune with the mysterious entity that's transformed them. This act symbolizes their rebirth and ongoing connection to the Dark Lake. So it's almost like a baptism in their eyes. So anyway, not no mechanics to that other than just sort of flavor that goes with it. Heritage feats. I got a series of heritage feats. This is something I mentioned in my other videos where I was talking about, hey, you're creating these ancestries. You're going to be creating ancestry feats. And then in Pathfinder, there are several ancestry feats that are prerequisited by heritages, for instance, or by, certain skills. So what I've gone ahead and done is for each of my ancestries, for each of the heritages, I'm now creating a set of linked heritage feats that are interchangeable with ancestry feats. So when you get an ancestry feat normally in the game, you could choose your standard stock ancestry feat, or you could choose a specific heritage feat that ties into the heritage of a drowned one. So we got Lysianasa's Blessing, Watery Grasp, Siren's Call, Abyssal Adaptation, Wrath of the Deep. I'm not going to get into each and every single one of those, but I'll probably talk about the first level ones. But there are several other ones that I'm creating and developing that are, again, going to be chainable together. They're going to be perhaps have one another as a prerequisite. So you have to take in Watery Grasp in order to have Wrath of the Deep sort of thing. And you need to be one of these drowned ones. So it really gives a very strong thematic flavor to not just the Mor'shael, but to a drowned one Mor'shael. It's almost like it could be its own ancestry in and of itself. So I really wanted to dive, no pun intended, into making that theme, really sing and really be apparent. So that is the drowned one. The next heritage I have is the spore-bound Mor'shael. These are the ones that are tied in with the myceloids here. As a child, you were joined with a myceloid colony, perhaps discovered as an orphan or given over by parents to protect you from some birth defect. Again, kind of going back to that being a major cultural hush hush secret element, with these Mor'shael, or possibly you were ordered to join this colony by decree of the eight, these matriarchs. Regardless, you have become one with the collective through heavy inhalation of rapport spores used to connect non-myceloids to their group consciousness. Your fungal family has taught you much about the toxic mushrooms and poisonous molds of the vaults. Over the years, you have come to embrace the dark, damp caverns where such things grow and learn how to safely extract their deadly secretions. The myceloids have even shown some of your kind how to combine such knowledge with the use of their hyphal blades and darts. By the way, the myceloids are another ancestry that I have not presented yet, but it's something that I have created. I'll make a video, hey, if this one kicks off, great, then I'll make that video as well. So hyphal blades and darts is a signature ancestry type of weapon that they would deploy. Anyway, they show these Mor'shael that they've adopted how to use these things and turning them into lethal assassins, spies, and infiltrators in defense of the Zigmunthar. The Zigmunthar is this colossal island-sized, mushroom fungus growing in the Dark Lake. How deep it goes, who knows? But it's massive, and it's mycorrhizal connections spread throughout the vaults. Benefits. So if you choose this as your heritage, you gain the specialty crafting poisons feat, even if you don't meet the skill prerequisites. So crafting is a skill, and then they have specialty crafting are feats that you can get bonuses and advantages to craft specific items. I like to kind of throw some of these in some of my ancestries and heritages because it's very flavorful. Uh, Again, no pun intended here. For this particular ancestry, this particular heritage, you can see them extracting, toxic mold juice or whatever, making poisons out of it. Additionally, you're trained in lore fungi. If you would automatically become trained in the lore, you can instead choose a different lore subcategory, so you can swap out the lore. Then the burden is prolonged exposure to these rapport spores has left your mind slightly ajar, creating occasional disorientation. You have a -1 circumstance penalty to will saves against mental effects. So you can see some of these could be debilitating. So I want to make sure if I am gonna institute this concept, I want to make sure these benefits are really, balancing out, the trade-off here. Tradition, communion of spores. This monthly ritual involves spending time in a meditative state within a sacred fungal grove, inhaling the rapport spores to strengthen the bond with their myceloid family and renew their connection to the collective consciousness. During the communion, participants enter a deep trance, allowing the rapport spores to weave their consciousness together. This shared experience reinforces their bond and provides insights from the collective knowledge of the myceloid colony. Again, flavor here, it's nothing mechanical. It's something that you could make it a mechanical thing if you wanted to, an extra power if you wanted to, but I'm not looking to do that yet and complicate stuff. And then heritage feats, we've got dread toxins, spores of concealment, toxic resilience, spore servant. I like that one. You get a little spore zombie. Mycelial mastery at 17. Moving on, we got the Ur child. So your constant exposure to the Ur, now the Ur in my game concept is like electromagnetic energy. It's the primal energy that's flowing through the earth, through these veins of crystal and metal, down to the core of the world, and et cetera, et cetera. So your constant exposure to this energy, to this flow, has awakened this long dormant part of your Fey lineage. And when the telluric current surges, so I have this idea of there is obviously no moon down here, and I'm replacing that concept of lunar cycles with telluric surges, telluric forces. Telluric current is carrying these electromagnetic forces through the earth. So they, ebb and flow similar to tidal forces. So anyway, when the telluric current surges, your eyes glow with earthly fire akin to the lum crystals illuminating the caverns. When it ebbs, they fade to black like nightshade crystal. Some call you a visionary, others a victim of primal possession. You are neither. You are simply a child of your new home, attuned to its alien pulse. Your benefit is you gain a +2 circumstance bonus on survival checks when you're attempting to sense direction while you're navigating caves, tunnels, and rifts. So you have to be out in the more natural places. Additionally, once per day, you may re-roll a skill check used to recall knowledge about stone formations, geologic processes, and creatures of the earth. It's a fortune effect, so it's, you roll 2d20s and you take the I think you have to take the second one if I'm not mistaken about fortune effects, but don't quote me on that one. Yeah, I say it right here. You have to use the new result even if it's worse than your first roll. Then the burden. The glow of your eyes makes it harder for you to hide in darkness. You suffer -2 circumstance penalty on stealth checks made to hide or sneak while you're in dim light or darkness. That again could be pretty debilitating. So maybe I need to knock this down to -1, or maybe you can close your eyes, or just some sort of flat check you can do. I don't know, but it's there. It's something I can toy with if I want to. Tradition. We got some more stuff here. We got the Union of Stone. This ritual involves meditating in a sacred cavern filled with lum crystals, focusing on the telluric currents. During the ritual, you chant reverberating tones and place your hands upon the stone to attune yourself to its energy. This practice not only deepens your connection to the earth, but also enhances your ability to navigate the vaults and understand its geological secrets. The ritual is often performed during significant telluric convergences or after major seismic events. So, here's another example of nothing mechanical, but from a backstory perspective, from a character role play perspective, you can see this potentially being something that a player could, dive into. Maybe you have some sort of earthquake event occurs during the game, and they, have to excuse themselves because they need to go perform the Union of Stone to appease the rocks that have been fractured. I don't know. It could be something that your players can get into or not, right? It's one of these take it or leave it types of things. Heritage feats, we've got several of these here. We've got Telluric Sight, we've got Stone Shaper, Earth's Embrace, Crystal Resonance, Geological Mastery are the main 5. All right, moving on, we've got Venom Kissed. You saw this picture in the original video presentation. These people are going to be the ones that have survived flesh warping. Flesh warping has created this heritage. This is a process sold by the Eight as the salvation of purity to preserve the silvery skin and the blackish flowing hair and those elvish, characteristics. Not this tarnishing, this corruption, this darkness that's seeping into everybody, and their hair is bleaching and it's losing their its luster and all that stuff. So the flesh warping is this treatment that the div shared with these elves, with these Mor'shael. So they were born of this alchemical blessing, as would be sold as. You're not really sure what was done to you after you entered the esteemed halls of the Chirurgeons College. You have a vague memory of excruciating pain, but it's fleeting, and you were soon discharged feeling invigorated. A model of superiority according to your physician. Everything's great. Go on out, live your life. You're awesome. But when the metamorphosis began, it was weeks later. It started with nightmares, or were those memories of your experience? You awakened from your treatment, like being kissed by venom, the nurse had told you with a smile, in what appeared to be a dungeon. The room was cold, lit by the annoying flicker of amphalo bulbs. There were chains bolted into the smooth stone walls connected to your ankle. There were other patients like you, but some were hung from hooks, and still others strapped to metallic tables being examined by robed doctors. You were dragged from the floor toward one of those tables as you complained your stomach was burning. But you fought against the orderly's rough hands. You found escape. Or did they let you go? You awakened for real with a shout of panic, clutching at the surgical scar in your abdomen. Did something move beneath the skin? As the days passed, you grow more terrified. What was done to you? You've heard stories of experimental failures, people turning into abominations with spiny appendages, fangs, and bloated bellies. Side note, see my Weaveling heritage, my Weaveling ancestry videos I put out a few months back. You'll know what's going on. Anyway, they all disappeared before anyone could see. If you're changing too, it will only be a matter of time before someone notices, and then they'll come for you. You still look more Shael, but there are tiny spines growing all along your skin, and you can feel odd lumps protruding from your rib cage. You pray these are just temporary side effects of the purification, but your heart tells you the true nightmare is yet to come. Benefit: your odd hairs grant you a 5 foot circumstance bonus to climb speed. You got like little spidery, fingery tendrils coming out of your, or hairs coming out of your body. And a +1 circumstance bonus to your reflex DC to resist being disarmed of anything you're holding. So this is you're starting to, if you know the D&D history or lore of like the Driders, you'll see where this can kind of be tying into that. Or the kite tines, as they call them in D&D. In my game world, I've created a kite tine race ancestry known as the Weavelings, and they get their origin from this process. And these stories that people are talking about that you heard from Piri referring to, there are rumors of even worse abominations crawling around some of the old laboratories. So Driders, and maybe something's going on there. Again, it's a mystery. It's I'm not telling the players exactly what's going on with their ancestry. I'm leaving it kind of up in the air because now if you choose this as a heritage that you're going to play, now I can start playing with this as I'm coming up with quests or side quests or stories. I'm saying, ooh, I've got myself a Mor'shael who's a Venomkist in the party. What can I do with that? Uh, Gives you some ideas as a GM. Burden. The flesh warping has left you physically unstable. You take a -1 penalty to fortitude saves to resist diseases and poisons as your body's constantly fighting off the changes happening within. I love that. Tradition. The nightly kiss. This clandestine and solemn meeting serves both as a rite of passage and as a means of mutual support among those who have undergone flesh warping. So maybe these are these people that are supposedly physically superior. They've undergone these treatments. They're models of health, but they're secretly meeting. Oh my God, I've got these strange things are growing out of my neck. I've been clipping them off so my wife doesn't see. But it's only a matter of time, and they're like hiding. And maybe there's like these secret cells that they meet, and then the matriarchs, they're hunting for these people to find them and like shut them up or dissect them to find out what went wrong with the experiments. Anyway, heritage feats. We've got experimental error. That's your level 1. Transform climber, experimental anomaly, venomous strike, and master of metamorphosis. All right, our next one is the warp touched Mor'shael. When they first arrived in the Great Grotto, your people had not heard of warpstone or the dangers of its warp fire emissions. That's the radiation. So warpstone is like uranium. Warp fire is the radiation that it's given off. So when they collected the glowing ore as a heat source, they didn't realize their lethal mistake until the radiation left them burned, withered, and dying days later. For some reason, it didn't kill everyone who came in contact, including you. The eight surmised it was the presence of high levels of fey magic in your blood, or perhaps your family's experience with eldritch weaves that saved you. Regardless, your exposure to the warp fire empowered your blood. Now you can feel it in the stone all around you, even summon it into your hands to burn with invisible flames. So you get this power known as Dark Fire, innate primal spell. It's like a little cantrip. So you can spend 2 or 3 actions on it once a day, 30-foot range. You target a creature, roll to hit it. If it's innate, you're going to use the charisma modifier as your spellcasting modifier. You hurl a burst of dark fire at your foe in range. Make a spell attack roll against their AC. If you hit, 2d6 warp fire damage. So I have like this special type of damage known as warp fire. It's like radiation. I'm assuming when not Spelljammer, when Starfinder makes its remaster, I'm betting radiation is going to be some sort of type of damage. I'm waiting for those rules to kind of come out because I think I can then just use them. If you're not familiar, Starfinder's getting a remaster as well, and it's going to be it's going to be compatible with Pathfinder's remaster, so you can have crossover between sci-fi and fantasy type of characters and stuff. So anyway, warp fire damage. The flames are invisible to normal damage, but can be seen with dark vision. That's a little bit of flavor, but it could come in handy if you're trying to somebody's in the darkness. You can fire this thing and they'll see it with the dark vision, but the people who are normally low light or just regular vision, they don't see anything. They just start burning. You can heighten the damage of the attack by an additional d6 by spending that third action, and the base damage increases every 4 levels. 3d6, 46, and 5d6. Or yeah, 5d6. Not every 4 levels, but every 6 levels. All right, Burden, the Warp Fire, and I believe this is standard for cantrips, so I believe that's the same thing. Burden, Warp Fire within you is unstable and unpredictable. Even whenever you use your Dark Fire attack, you do a DC 5 flat check. On a failure, the Warp Fire bursts uncontrollably, and all creatures and objects within 10 feet of you take D6 warp fire. That also might need to be scaled up or something like that as well. So I might have to edit that. D6 per action. Per action spent. Something like that. All creatures and objects within 10 feet of you take 1d6 warp fire damage. I like that. Per action spent. Per action spent to cast the spell. Boom. This way you can do up to 3d6 damage. I don't think it needs a scale by level. That might be a little over the top. But anyway, you just blow up and you lose that action or actions. Tradition, Dark Fire Circle. Conducted in a specially prepared chamber lined with warpstone and nightshade crystals, the ritual is overseen by experienced warp-touched elders who guide the participants through a series of meditative exercises and controlled exposure to warp fire. Participants must focus on harnessing and controlling the warp fire, channeling it into their bodies without succumbing to its destructive nature. The ritual includes a series of tests, such as lighting specific warpstone markers with dark fire, creating warp fire shields, and sustaining the energy without causing harm. Your feats for this one, you've got Warpfire Conduit, Warpfire Mastery, Eldritch Resilience, Warpfire Surge, and Avatar of Warpfire. Your next heritage is the Web Wrapped Mor'shael. These would be like your devout, priestly types. As a devotee of Payenka, the wandering spider, you have donned the silk veil, the web wrapped, one who has pledged themselves to her freedom by seeking an entrance to the Netherweft and willingness to risk its exploration once found. So this Payenka is not free to interact with anybody. It's trapped in this Netherweft prison for reasons that are beyond the discussion here. Go see my Ahriman videos that I put out again a couple weeks later. They're on my YouTube channel. Go check out the playlist of talking about Primordials. Ahriman will give you the insider scoop on Payenka and why she is trapped within the Netherweft. Anyway, these so-called earth-faced spirits that are native to the vaults, they bring tidings to these Mor'shael who are desperate for a cure to the tarnishing. They're desperate for an escape from the vaults. They're ripe for the picking, right? So they buy into what's being sold. They buy into this idea of Payenka. They give up their beliefs of the surface gods, specifically Tempesti, who was like the main elven goddess. Anyway, so they serve Payenka unwaveringly there, and these web wrapped have pledged themselves to find this Payenka, to free her from this Netherweft, this interdimensional shifting maze type of web. But anyway, believing she's going to lift them up, they're going to free them. So your devotion has allowed you to harness the power of elemental earth and weave its crystals into silken threads of immense strength. So let's draw like threads from crystals, microcrystals. You gain the Tangle Vine cantrip as an innate primal spell at will. Cantrips heightened to a spell rank equal to half your level rounded up. You also get the additional lore general feat for arachnid lore. Burden, the silk veil you wear makes it difficult to blend in with others. You suffer a -2 circumstance penalty on diplomacy checks to make an impression or request anything from those who are not followers of Payenka or familiar with the web wrap. So you're just walking around with this veil over your face and kind of freaks people out, I'm sure. Tradition, the weaving is what this one's called. This ritual involves intricate weaving of silken threads, imbued with elemental earth, creating tapestries that tell the history of their people and their devotion to Payenka. During the ritual, participants enter a meditative state, channeling their spiritual energy into the threads and forming a connection with the wandering spider. The resulting tapestries are hung in sacred spaces and serve as focal points for prayer and meditation. Successful completion of the weaving ritual is seen as a sign of Payenka's favor and strengthens the bond between the web wrapped and their primordial mistress. I like this one because, from a GM perspective, this could be a quest. This could be a downtime activity, right? You could have the player, they want to level up, or they're looking for some assistance from a higher up in the religion. This could be something they would have to accomplish first. They'd have to do this weaving ritual and create some tapestry. They'd have to do some sort of performance or crafting check. I'm sorry, a crafting not performance to weave this thing together. That could be a fun little activity. Uh, Feats, web weaving, veil of silk, silken step, eldritch weaving, and avatar of Payenka are the 5. All right, so those I believe are all, yeah, those are all the heritages that I've come up with, the six that go with that mechanics of the Mor'shael. Then I've got a series of ancestry feats that I'll share with you here. Just the first level ones. I'm not going to get, well, I don't have all the other ones done yet. Anyway, but just to give you an idea of how this ancestry is fleshed out completely. And most of the inspiration here, again, I'm not just raw creating this from scratch, don't know what the hell I'm doing type of thing, although maybe I don't know what I'm doing. But a lot of these are coming from the elves that are published, remastered, whatever. And you can use those as a template, as a foundation to then adapt and adjust for your specific setting, for your game world. And I get a lot of assistance. I use ChatGPT for this sort of thing. I will take the published remastered ancestry stuff like elves, put in the ChatGPT and get assistance with converting it into the flavor I'm looking for because I have all this lore for my Mor'shael created at this point. I've got my heritages, right? I've got the ancestry and its mechanics. So now I can say, hey, ChatGPT, here's my target. Here are these elvish feats that I want to create. Can we convert those over? So I've done that, and I do a lot of these different conversions as I go from one to the other. Or you can take, let's say, drow abilities from monsters or NPCs in the game and do the similar kind of concept. You can take these cool ideas that you find in D&D 4th edition or whatever it is and plug it into something like ChatGPT, have the AI help you create these things and have it tailor it towards the Pathfinder game system because you know what the Pathfinder 2e game system and the power levels look like because you got the elf as your target. So anyway, that's what I've got here. So a lot of these are going to be similar to what you'd see in the elves. I've just maybe renamed them, reflavored them, reskinned them, whatever. Ambitious schemer. Beneath the veil of perfection and behind the stories of hope lie the true tools for advancement in Mor'shael society seduction and treachery. You may choose to become trained in either deception or diplomacy. If you're already trained in those, you become trained in additional skill of your choice. So behind this veil of purity and we're all for escape, there is a lot of politicking going on. You're getting that traditional drow, cutthroat sort of society. This whole breeding program that's going on, they control the purity thing. You can see all that's in the background. That's all behind the scenes. Now, a player character doesn't need to buy into any of that. They can be an outsider. They can be naive to these things. But in the game world, these matriarchs, these eight, that Lady of the Isle, they're not necessarily nice people. Are they evil? No. Hopefully, the story that Piri told gave you the rationale for what they think and they believe. So even though these are drow based entities, right? I don't have to buy into they're chaotic evil demon worshippers. No, not at all. Okay. The Div are in that fiendish environment, but in the game world that I've created, they're not necessarily evil, right? They have their motivations going on, which too much information. I take me hours to explain it all, but they've got a little agenda going on there. It ties into Ahriman, it ties into Payanka and what's going on there. Again, made a video about some of that stuff a while ago. Go check it out. But they're into this diplomacy and deception and that sort of politicky stuff. Mor'shael lore, this is a standard feat you'll see in most ancestries. You know the lore of your people, so you've studied the traditional elven arts of your surface ancestors, as well as the subterranean habits of your myceloid allies. So I've thrown in, they kind of have this mix, this blend of these two traditions now. You gain the trained proficiency rank in survival and nature. If you already got those from somewhere else, you can choose, right? You also get the additional lore, general feat, Fey lore. Weapon familiarity, again, this is a pretty standard feat that is available to all ancestries. You know the weapons of your people. So only thing I did a little bit of a different flavor here because elven weapons would not be predominant here, obviously, given the circumstance. So I talk about that. I say, in the confines and darkness of the vaults, traditional elven weapons such as the longsword, longbow, they're much less accessible. You don't have wood. You don't have like the space to swing big weapons around if you're in these tight little tunnels, so they're impractical. As a Mor'shael, you become adapted to the conditions. You prefer lighter, smaller weapons, more compact. You're going to get into hand crossbows, rapiers, scimitars. So I talk about that here. You get access to elf trait weapons. So if you're just going with standard Pathfinder stuff, you can pick that. I'll probably at some point do some sort of homebrewy twist on weapons because I want to make each of the ancestries have some unique flavored weapons that goes with them. So I'll have to kind of create my, I don't want to say create my own weapons, but I'll take some of the weapons that are in the, in the player core there and just adapt them to what I'm talking about here. So not necessarily the elf trait, but, the Mor'shael trait. But anyway, rapier, scimitar, hand crossbow, blah blah blah. You get the critical weapon hits. On its critical specialization effect is unlocked at 5th level. So that would have to be if you go into the weapon table there, each different weapon is in a category of weapons. And if you roll a critical hit, they'll do special things, maybe extra damage, maybe knock somebody over, whatever. It just depends on what the weapon is and what category it's in. Then we got Earth's Caress. Once a day, you can use this. The Stone of the Vaults is charged with enormous amounts of primal energy. You've learned how to channel some of that into a healing bomb. You get Healing Plaster, innate primal cantrip at will. Its height and spell rank equal to half your level, rounded up. I've tried to make sure everything here is in the remastered language. Some of my original vids I was making, especially with some of the lore stuff, this was pre-remaster, pre me getting my hands on it, really start to understand it. So as I go back at this Mor'shael, which is one of my first ancestries I created before the remaster came out last, spring or so, I had to go back and reword a lot of this. So I'm hoping I got the language correct now. So if you're reading this and maybe not familiar with the remaster rules, this hopefully matches them. Or if you are a remaster specialist, hopefully I did it right. If I didn't, let me know in the comments what it should say. Earthbreaker Warrior. You've trained to battle the native creatures that abound in this subterranean place, taking advantage of their, should be a comment there, taking advantage of their inherent weaknesses and limiting their strengths. You get a +1 circumstance bonus to damage with weapons and unarmed attacks against creatures with the Earth trait. So that is a trait that you'd find like in the monster core. If your attack would deal more than one weapon die of damage, the bonus is equal to the number of weapon dice. So if you had a d6 weapon, you get +1. If you have a 2d6 damage weapon, you get +2. And also, when a creature attempts to seek action to locate you using its tremor sense, so these earth trait creatures, a lot of them have tremor sense to detect. They have a -2 penalty on their perception check because you're able to know how to walk softly, type of thing, or avoid making a lot of vibrational noise. Eldritch Light is kind of like the old Dancing Lights cantrip, but it's got a twist to it. Hopefully, you'll see and enjoy this one. Once a day, your Fey blood is powered by the energy of the earth around you, allowing you to manifest eldritch power even if you aren't formally trained in magic. You can cast a variant of light as an innate primal cantrip at will. Cantrips, blah, 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 spell rank, yada, 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 special. So it's essentially a light spell or light cantrip, but this light cannot be attached to an object or creature. So that is a penalty to the regular light cantrip. Then at the cost of 2 actions, you can move the lights, and this is like what you can do with regular light, but you can move it, which is the sustain action, and then cause it to detonate in a radiant burst as part of the dismiss action. So you can move your ball of light. I think light spell can move 20 feet, 30 feet. I forget. I have to look it up again. But anyway, the light cantrip, you normally can move it as a sustain action. I'm saying you can move it and blow it up as a 2 action fun little thing that you can do aside from. So you can't do this with regular light spell, but you can do it with this Eldritch Light. When it blows up, anybody within 5 feet of the burst, 5 foot square around it, has to make a fort save. If they fail, they're going to be dazzled for a round. If they crit fail, they're blinded for a round, dazzled for a round. They can spend an interact action to rub their eyes and get rid of the blinding condition. If they succeed, there's no effect. And if they're using dark vision at the time you detonate it, they have a minus penalty on this saving throw. So it goes back to that, hey, everybody's got dark vision, everybody's got low light vision. Well, there are penalties that I'm building into the system here to take advantage or make that a disadvantage. So it's not like everybody's, hey, we all got dark vision, we're great. There's also some drawbacks to that. All right, let's continue. Stoic calm. As much as you've seen and suffered in your life, you've come to terms with this ugly world, and the perpetual darkness no longer frightens you. If an enemy rolls a failure on a coerce or demoralize attempt against you with intimidation, you become immune to the additional attempts by it for a day. In addition, when you roll a save against an effect that would cause the frightened condition, you treat a critical failure as a failure instead. All right, then we got toxic tolerance. You've spent a great deal of time among mycelites, frequently visiting their homes like the gills beneath Ryan Carrion Isle. This has exposed you to continuous low-level dose of toxic molds and narcotic spores. Your body has built up a tolerance to their side effects. You get a +1 circumstance bonus to saves against effects that would impose a condition belonging to the lowered ability group: clumsy, drained, enfeebled, or stupefied. I like that Pathfinder groups their conditions like this because it allows you to make effects like this rather than having to list 50 different effects. I could just say lowered ability group, a lowered ability group. I'm adding it in here more for myself because off the top of my head, I don't know what the ability group is, but look that up and Archives of Nethys or in the player core, you'll see it. Tunnel runner. Your muscles are tightly honed from frequent exercise, moving through the confining tunnels and uneven surfaces of the vaults. Your walk speed increases by 5 feet. So they already start with 30 feet. If you take this one, you have a 35-foot movement speed. That's pretty damn fast in Pathfinder terms because most everybody has a 25-foot. So you're already out maneuvering people by 10 feet. This could be a huge advantage. Maybe it's overpowered. I don't know. I'd have to go double check, but I'm pretty sure elves already have a 30-foot movement speed. I don't know if they have a +5 movement speed as a first level feat though. Anyway, unwavering mind, I believe is how you pronounce that. Mind. Daily meditation has increased your mental control and awareness. You're resistant to external influences upon your consciousness and able to remain alert even while unconscious during regular sleep. Whenever you're affected by a mental effect that lasts at least 2 rounds, you can reduce the duration by 1 round. Additionally, while you're asleep, you get a +2 circumstance bonus to perception checks made to awaken due to a noise. Okay, so this makes you more keenly aware of your surroundings. All right, then we've got a couple more here to wrap out. I think what I was targeting, usually when I create ancestry feats first level, I try to shoot for about a dozen. So I think I've got 12 here. I think it's the last couple. Vault Delver. Those who brave the lightless tunnels of the vaults learn to identify the dangerous phenomena that characterize its wild tunnels. You gain a +2 bonus on initiative roll checks. So pretty straightforward, but pretty strong as well. Then we've got, and I think this might team up with something I put in the one of the heritages. I think you also get a bonus in for initiative. I have to double check that because again, that might be OP in combination. If you got like +4 in your initiative at first level or something to that effect, that could be pretty nasty. Yeoman's work. Mor'shael, this leans into their history as sailors. So I want to make sure that that flavor comes forward into the game, even though there's not necessarily an ocean. There is the Dark Lake. It is, and I'm going to try to make sure that this is more true in the remastered version of my game, that there's water bodies around that people who do have, water type of skills and feats or ancestries have a place that makes sense for them and they're actually going to be useful. So I think rather than just seeing this under earth or the dark lands as just stone everywhere and there's hardly any air and there's no water, why aren't there lakes and rivers and stuff? There's got to be. I mean, the water from the surface has got to go somewhere, right? Anyway, yeoman's work. Your ancestors were one with the sea and you carry their legacy in your blood. You have an innate familiarity with bodies of water, great and small, as well as how to traverse and navigate them. When in a river, lake, or ocean environment, you have a +1 circumstance bonus on survival skill checks. You gain the specialty crafting shipbuilding feat. Even if you don't meet its skill prerequisite, you also gain the additional lore general feat for fishing lore. So flavorful, ties in with that, you want to be a sailor type thing. I see maybe you're a swashbuckler, Mor'shael. This could make sense for you. All right, those are the 12 just generic ancestry feats. Then the last thing I want to talk about here before we wrap this all up are the heritage feats. I gave the list of heritage feats. I do have the first level ones available, kind of so you can see how these can replace the standard feats that I just mentioned as an option, and how they tie specifically into the different heritages. So let's take a look at these ones. For the drowned one, we've got Lysianasa's Blessing. Spoiler, that might be the name of the voice from the deeps. But anyway, prereq drowned one, right? You've been blessed by the power of Lysianasa, an ancient water primordial inhabiting the dark lake. I come up with names sometimes that look fine on paper, and then all of a sudden you start to try to say it, and you're like, you can't. Anyway, ancient water primordial inhabiting the dark lake, granting you increased resilience and control over the water. You gain the following benefits. I'll give you a little bit of spoiler. There's a little bit of a conflict going on in the dark lake between forces, and that helps explain the tiger fish faction that was mentioned in Piri's video there. Anyway, you get the following benefits: 5 foot status bonus to swim speed. Okay. Length of time you can hold your breath underwater is increased by your character level before you start suffocating. I forget, it's a number of rounds equal to your con, I think it is. You can hold your breath underwater or suffocate. This then increases it by your level on top of that. That might be OP. I might need to make it half your level rounded up. Because, 20th level, you got 20 rounds. That's pretty long. I don't know. Anyway, when you're suffering or suffocating in water, critical fail on a fortitude save is treated as a regular failure instead. And you can speak Thalassic, which is the water elemental language. And by the way, when you hear me say, oh, I may have to change that, all my players know that. Hey, this stuff is homebrew. This stuff is immutable, right? Nothing's set in stone. We'll play it. If something seems broken, I'll fix it. If it needs to be nerfed, I'll nerf it. If it needs to be buffed, I'll buff it. All right? Some stuff you don't know if it's too OP until you see it in a game, and all of a sudden, holy crap, I didn't intend that to happen. Uh, you know, that's the benefit of play testing, right? I don't have that benefit, but if you did have play testing, it would show up. All right, let's continue. I'm going to skip past the higher level stuff. Watery Grass, Siren's Call, Abyssal Adaptation, and Leviathan's Wrath. I do want to just mention that you'll notice that they build, right? I got Watery Grass is required. Uh, Lysianasa's Blessing is required for Abyssal Adaptation. All right, so then let's take a look at the Spore-Bound Heritage. This was the second one, Dread Toxin. You've honed your skills in crafting and using poisons to deadly effect. You get a +1 circumstance bonus to crafting checks to create poisons, and you can apply poisons to your weapons as a free action once per round. Additionally, when you successfully hit a creature with a poison weapon, you deal an additional d4 poison damage. So you're really good with poisons, is what this one's all about. So if you take your time to craft poisons, during downtime, let's say, and you have them on your person. Now, as a free action, you're able to put them on your weapons, and then when you strike with it, you do an extra d4 damage. This might need to get a look-see. I'm kind of waiting until the new Alchemist comes out with the Player Core 2 that's being released in a few more months. That'll help me, figure out if this is too much or too little. But anyway, I based it on something I saw somewhere. Continuing, right, got more of those feats for that heritage. Again, I'm not going to talk about them other than to say, hey, they do tie into some of the other stuff. So the Dread Toxin is required for toxic resilience, as an example. All right, then we got the Your Child heritage. This is Telluric Sight, is the first level feat. Your eyes can perceive the telluric currents flowing through stone, allowing you to detect where its natural flow has been broken or disturbed. You get a +2 circumstance bonus to perception checks when you're taking the seek action to find undetected or hidden doors and passages made of or set into materials made of earth. So this would be good for exploration mode, right? You're searching a room, trying to see if there's a secret door. As long as it's stony, stony floor, stony walls, whatever, and that's where the door or the secret place is, you'll be able to have this bonus. If you're in a metal place, no. Some, fake type of place, no. You're up in a tree, no. In the water, no. It's got to be stone, right? That's what your telluric forces are moving through. Additionally, you get +1 circumstance bonus to perception made to find traps and hazards that have the environmental trait. So this is cool. Like hazards, traps have tags, have traits, just like spells and everything else. So it's environmental, then you'd have an increased bonus to detect it. This is a little bit open-ended because, well, what if the trap is not stone or not, whatever, the environment's water? As a GM, I'd have to play that, by ear. I wasn't going to try to finagle this anymore. Environmental trap trait and earth trait. I don't think hazards have traits like earth or, stone. At least that I saw. So I just want environmental, and at that point, you just kind of use common sense because it's telluric site, it's telluric currents, it's stone. So there has to be something stony. Stone Shaper, Earth's Embrace, Crystal Resonance, and Geological Mastery are the other ones. Then the Venom Kist as experimental error is your first level feat there. Your body has undergone alchemical experimentation, granting you a level of resistance to poisons and other natural substances. You gain the following benefits: +2 circumstance bonus to saves against poisons. If you fail a save, you get a +2 circumstance bonus to your next save against that poison or disease within 24 hours. Once a day, you can attempt to temporarily suppress the effects of poison that's already afflicted you. You make a DC flat check based upon the level of the poison, whatever it is. If you're successful, you can temporarily suppress its effects for 1 minute. Because most poisons, when you get them, don't just do damage, they do some sort of condition or whatever. So you can suppress that for, whatever, a minute or more, depending on if you can make this check or not. So note that the duration of suppression may be extended by spending additional actions that they keep like fighting against this internal like poisoning until you can go get cured or whatever the case may be. But each time you try to make the flat check, the DC goes up by another one, so it's not just automatic. All right, then we got Transform Climber, Experimental Anomaly, Venomous Strike, Master of Metamorphosis. Then we've got our Warp Touched Heritage. The Warp Fire Conduit is the first level feat for that heritage. The strange and chaotic energies of Warpstone flow through your veins, granting you the ability to harness their power. You gain the following benefits: Warpfire radiation is visible, allowing you to see by it even in magical darkness out to a range of 30 feet. So you can see radiation, you can see that energy. Again, this is very specific to my game world, to this warp fire concept, and you're gonna have to use sort of your GM common sense to let a player know whether or not there's enough radiation nearby for them to see by. I would say if they're out of settlement areas and they're in the wild tunnel somewhere and there's magical darkness, and somebody's let the Caligni are attacking them with darkness spells, I would probably say yeah, there's enough of the warp fire around for you to see it. It's like low light, or you got a -2 circumstance penalty. It's not perfect, but you can see some glimpses of energy. Why not? If you're like in a settled area, I would say no, you can't see it unless you're near one of the warp fire, forges or engines or whatever they got that, because they use the warp stone as an energy source in the game world. As an action, you can create a shield of dark fire that surrounds you or an ally within 30 feet. And the shield is hardness 5, hit points 10 plus your level. It lasts for a minute until it's destroyed. While the shield is active, it follows the target and grants bonus to their AC as if they had used the raised shield. So it gives you this vision, which is kind of, situational. But then the real power here for this Warpfire Conduit is this shield spell that you can use. And I think the language of this is, and the stats are similar to what the shield cantrip does. It might be a little bit different. I might make it a little bit weaker so that it's not too like OP. So that, hey, why take the shield spell if you can just do this? It's a Mor'shael, but you can throw it on someone else. I like that idea. I think later there's a version where it can be like a damaging shield as well, which is kind of cool. Warpfire Surge, I think it might be. Anyway, boom, boom, boom. Web wrapped. Last one. Web weaving is the first level feat for this one. You've got the ability, you've learned to harness the power of these silken crystalline threads, using them to create webs that can ensnare your enemies. You gain the ability to use the create a diversion action to create a web trap that triggers when an enemy enters its space. So there is an action in the game called create diversion. I think, yeah, it's deception. It's a deception skill. So under deception skill is create a diversion action. And so anyway, you can use the create a diversion action to create this web trap that triggers when an enemy enters a space. So the web trap lasts for a minute or until it's triggered. Whichever comes first. When it's triggered, the web trap deals a d7 bludgeoning damage to the triggering creature and immobilizes it for a round. I gotta look. I don't think that is the. I gotta double check to see if that's a condition or not. So I might have to look at and tweak this a little bit. That's one of the problems if you are using like AI, Chat GPT, something like that. It might get some of the language wrong or confuse it with D&D terminology. So I need to double check this one. Maybe I don't want bludgeoning damage. Maybe it should be like slashing damage as these webs are like slicing through you. I kind of see that more than bludgeoning. But anyway, I kind of like this idea, right? So it's a unique concept where you're using a skill that you don't use a lot. Deception, create diversion. You made this trap. Now somebody's going to step in it and boom, right? The DC to detect is equal to your class DC. Bang, they stepped in it. So it's a unique aspect that you don't see with a lot of characters. So I like this concept here. All right, then the other ones, right? We got Veil of Silk, you got Silken Step, Eldritch Weaving, Avatar to Payenka, blah, blah, blah. And then the rest of the stuff that I haven't finished, as I said. So there you go, guys and gals. I have gone ahead and presented to you this entire ancestry I put together for Mor'shael to serve as the drow in a Darklands based campaign that you may or may not be running. So it's giving you an option, an idea. If you're interested in more about this or this document or whatever, leave a comment down below. Otherwise, you know what to do, right? You like, you subscribe. Hopefully, you enjoyed the video. If you'd like to see more of those lore heavy videos narrated by NPCs, let me know. That was a lot of fun for me to put together. A lot of time it took, of course, as well. And I just wanted to share this whole thing with you guys in one big video. So hopefully, this wasn't too crazy over the top long. I know it is an hour and 20 minutes at this point, but there's a lot here, as you can see. All right. Appreciate you checking this out. Have yourselves a good evening and peace out.